Around the Ozarks is now on your FM radio. Listen to Around the Ozarks mornings with Grace Gooley as I spotlight local people, stories, and podcasts, all while playing the country legends of the 90s and the hit makers of the 2000s. It's on the Ozarks' best country, 105.1 The Bull. It's time for Around the Ozarks sports scene, brought to you by Colton's Steakhouse, Thompson Sales, and Deadeye Gun and Pawn in Sparta. Here's your host, Scott Purrier.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks sports scene. I am Scott Purrier. As always, big thank you to you for tuning in this week as we talk sports and the Ozarks and beyond. And today we're going to visit with one of my favorite people. Been around a long time. There are so few of us that can say we're veteran warriors of the media people here in Springfield. But Dan Lucy, the KOLR 10 sports director for 37 years, or at least with the station for 37 years. The end of an era. Dan is no longer at KOLR 10. Exploring other opportunities. But Dan, we certainly appreciate your time today.
Well, I appreciate you asking, Scott. Thanks a lot. Yeah, we go back a long way, back to where Great Southern Bank Arena was a parking lot.
I can't even name all the names that have changed since that happened. You know, I just remember, and now we're good friends. And when Scott Opper was sports director and covering the Price Cutter Charity Championship, and Opper was a former college football player working his way up to the front of the ropes to film. And nobody's like, I'm not getting in there. I'm not challenging that, but we fought those wars together. Of course, we went through all the stuff. I was a columnist, you were at KOLR 10, Ned at KY3, R on the radio. We're all still living. That's the best part.
That's the best part. Yeah, still cooking. That's
exactly. Sure. Well, to fill people in, Dan found out a few months ago his contract wasn't going to be renewed at KOLR 10 because they were going to do sports differently. That was their explanation. And we talked with Dan this morning on the radio. We're not quite sure what that is. We'll have to wait and see what that means. But a great run for Dan at KOLR 10. I said it on social media. I always respected just the professionalism. You're a guy that has always done your job and kind of somehow stayed out of the spotlight and the limelight. And I don't know how you pulled that off for 37 years, but you did. That's kind of your MO, though. It's always been not about you, but about the ones you're covering, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's what I was taught back in journalism school. There was actually a thing called journalism school at the University of Missouri when I graduated from there in '85. But yeah, indeed, it's about the athletes. It's about the coaches. It's about the game. Tell the story for the people that if they were at the game, maybe they don't know the behind the scenes stuff. If they weren't at the game, we can share it with them.
Absolutely. And you did that so well. And it's interesting you bring up the journalism part. I've had this discussion and things have evolved. I know that social media is king now. Everything's about clicks and views and all that instead of about just doing your job, and doing it the right way. And people say we now instead of, the team, and it just drives me nuts. But is that part of it that, you've seen it evolve a lot? Kind of talk about that evolution and how things, the way you were used to doing it maybe are different now.
Oh, definitely. You were a witness to what was going on. You weren't a part of it. You weren't, sharing ideas with the coaches, here, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try that? And everything has changed so much. And my approach to everything throughout my years was that there were a lot of things that changed that helped technologically. When I first got here, we were shooting on 3/4-inch videotape and on a machine slapping the side. I remember being at a Springfield Catholic high school football game where the rain was running down the cord into the machine and started smoking. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's changed. Now you can shoot it on your phone. And then just getting live shots back. It used to be where you had to have a big truck with the big antenna, and you had to have a line of sight. And I remember we used to go shoot games over at Ozarks High School, over at McConnell Field back in the old days. And we had one location that we could park that microwave truck and point that antenna toward KOLR 10's tower, and we could get a shot out of there. And then one year we got in there and got to that spot, and we couldn't get the shot out, and we couldn't figure out what it was. then we realized it was James River Assembly put their steeple on the top of their church, and it just blocked our shot.
I think it'd be fun for you, Ned, and I, and Art to sit around and compare war stories, because I still tell people now, I don't know how we did it. Myself, Lyndall Scranton, the late Larry S. Hazelrigg, guys that covered things, Steve KOLR, with no internet. The thing I remember most about high school football, which I cut my teeth on when I came out of SMS, was the challenge of it's 10:15. I have to have a story in at 10:45, and I'm still here at this stadium at Glendale.
Right.
So I've got to drive across town in 15 minutes, sit down, write for 15 minutes, and beat a deadline. And now kids, they could just go to their car, fire up their phone as an internet connection, and send a story, But
yeah, that's the thing. And we talked about so the truck became a backpack, and then it became a tiny little brick, and now you can just kind of do it anywhere, which is amazing. And that helps, but then you've got the other thing. For me, I would remember the last, let's say, 6 months, when all this was going down. I kept remembering back to the days, and I was like, well, why were we able to get an entire game covered back when it was at the Hammond Student Center, when Steve Alford was, and then I realized because we didn't have an early show, we didn't have a 9:00 show.
Yeah.
We just had a 10:00 show. So we only had one show to worry about. And so everything kind of evolves and changes a little bit. And that was, that kept everything fun. And it kept it interesting, but then it just kind of seemed to swirl and swirl and swirl. And now it's just, unrecognizable as to what they're trying to do.
Well, and we're in a market that it doesn't need 7 newscasts a day. We don't have enough news to go around for it to be that different from 5, 6, 7, 11, noon, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6:30, 9, 10, whatever and stuff. And all through that period, the sports coverage was shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because we became just amazed by the weather and the reporting, which we now have available on app on our phone now. But lost you there just for a second, Dan, as we get you back. Lost your picture there shortly. See if we can get Dan back here in just a second. But yeah, we're sharing the glorious days, the war stories of our time together in the media there. And Dan, are you back with me?
I can see myself in the shot. I just can't see you.
Yeah, and I can't see you either. I'm going to take you out of the picture for a second and then re-add you. So why don't you try to reconnect there if you can? We'll just pause here. Lucy, we're talking about all the things, the challenges we had with getting stories in and towers, and we lose internet connection on a straight figure in 2026. Technology.
Well, now Scott, you work for the Newsleader, obviously. I worked for the Newsleader too. Did you know that?
I did not know that until Lyndall pointed that out in a story that he did in the Citizen. Yeah, that you were stringing for us for about 3 years, right?
It was. I believe it was one year. It was one basketball season, and it was because Greg Kavner was up there.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was when Springfield, believe it or not, folks out there, Springfield had 2 newspapers, a morning newspaper and an afternoon newspaper every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would cover the basketball games, and I'd have to write 2 stories, one for the morning, one for the evening the next day. And I would pick up the typewriter, a portable typewriter that would be in a little black case, and walk across Mizzou's campus underneath Providence Road, underneath the little tunnel, and then go over to the Hearn Center and sit down there. And then after the game, tap, 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 get on the phone, a landline phone, and call the Newsleader office. And then Warren Mays was the editor back then.
Yeah.
And then I would dictate my story to him. And that's how we did it. And I did that for an entire basketball season. I made enough money to put 4 new tires on my 1972 Chevy Nova.
Wow. And that I remember in those days back when I was a clerk before that, you didn't want to answer the phone and get the dictation call because you're going to be on there for about 30 minutes. And it's like, you got here. And then you'd be like, if it was a ball game, you'd take it. But if it was like you, just a second and hang up and lose the connection. And else get it. But Anyway, well, and tell us what did bring you to Springfield. Talk about the circumstances. You went to Mizzou. I know you
Right.
graduated high school in Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
Your dad was in the Army, and you moved a lot as a kid, right?
Yeah, I moved all over the country. I went to kindergarten in Germany. I went to elementary school in Fort Monroe, Virginia, which is near Norfolk, and then went to middle school in Hawaii. I lived there for 3 years with my dad and my mom and dad at Schofield, which is in the middle of Oahu. And one year of my freshman year in high school was there. Then I went to Omaha. When I was in Omaha, I was part of Junior Achievement, and it's a business thing. But in Omaha, they had a TV station, so we would go and hang out at the Channel 3, which has changed different since then. But a lot of the people in that newsroom went to Mizzou. So they were like, if you are serious about this, you need to go to Mizzou. So I went to Mizzou, and then I graduated from Mizzou in '85, and then worked for 3 years as the sports director at KOMU, which is the NBC up there. And then I was looking around to try to get another job, and that was when the Tom Mass, Scott Opfer thing happened down here, and there was an opening. And I actually, if I remember right, I applied for the Tom Mass job where Tom Mass got the job at KSBR. I applied for that job, and they said I didn't get it. And then, like, as soon as I hung up the phone and was feeling sorry for myself, the phone rang, and it was Scott Opfer saying, "Hey, you want to come down and do this?" So the rest is history.
When did you decide you wanted to go into journalism? At what age? And in sports, did you play a lot as a kid, or kind of give us the background there?
Well, I mean, I grew up playing football and all the sports, soccer, basketball, baseball, all the sports as a kid growing up. And we, being an Army brat is what we call ourselves. We grew up on Army posts. So we were always doing the sports because they always had a sports league going, no matter what it was. Whatever the season was, there was, baseball games and soccer games and football and the whole 9 yards. And then when I got into high school in Omaha, I worked for the yearbook and started writing and working for the school paper, the high school paper. And at that, we did everything. We did news, we did sports, we did, 3 or 4 people just did as many stories as you could. And I got to Mizzou, and the first 2 years at Mizzou, you're not allowed to be doing any in journalism school. You don't go to journalism school till you're a junior. But everybody said, including those guys in the newsroom in Omaha, they said, work on the Man-Eater, which was the school paper, as a freshman and a sophomore, so you don't lose your writing skills. So that's what I did. And when I got to the Man-Eater, they had so many news reporters. They didn't have any sports reporters. And I said, well, heck, I can do sports. That's fun. And then I did that, and then worked as like an assistant editor when I got to be a junior there. And then that's where I got connected with the news leader. But it was always television. When I was in high school, that's where I kind of got the bug with that junior achievement thing, being at the television station in Omaha.
And you and I are the same age. We're both 63 and came out of college at the same time. We came along down here at a very good time. I mean, spoonball and the amazing things that Cheryl Burnett was doing with the Lady Bears. You had the Marshfield girls run and, Kickapoo girls and Catholic girls. And, I thought it was interesting. And again, Lyndall Scranton just did an excellent job on a story in the Citizen talking about, you always kind of had a little affinity for Evangel, and talk about that, there were a lot of places that, other cities, they would have got lost in the shuffle, but you made sure they didn't.
Well, one of the things is what I like to do is kind of juggle everything. My philosophy was to give everybody as much coverage as we can. Try not to leave anybody out. When I mean that, I mean like, Missouri State, Drury, Evangel, the high schools, the Springfield Cardinals, obviously now. But with Evangel, my thing with them was, first of all, they were close. And you set up your week on what you want to do. And, high school football is Friday night. We would have that big. So Friday was the high school night. Saturday was the college football day. Sunday was the NFL. And then you set things up during the week. Well, I had a hole on Wednesdays where there wasn't anything going on. And Evangel was close to the TV station. And they would win. First of all, they would always, 9 wins, 10 wins, always, and it's small college football, which was kind of fun. It's relaxed. So I would go down there on Wednesdays and give them a little love on Wednesdays. And we it was we always used to call it Bear Nation is what they did everything with Missouri State. We always used to call it Crusader County on Wednesday nights when we would go down there. But the coaches were all fun. I would always try to pick a player to give them a little bit of coverage, just kind of give them a little spotlight. And then when it got to be where everything was on when you would do the story, then you would put it online. Well, then they had a whole series of stories on the web that they could go back to and people could follow their season. And, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, did you know they're in the second round of the NAIA playoffs? If you were paying attention, you would know that.
Yeah. And I think that, and from my end of things too, just such great people over there to work with. I mean, right. From Dr. David Stair to Steve Jenkins to Keith Bearfield, David Fillmore, the SID, that I'll never forget him making bologna and ham and cheese sandwiches in the press box for, they couldn't afford to do a spread for the media, but Dave made sandwiches. And, it just, and I know you felt the same way, but they appreciated us being there at that point. And that really made a difference.
Well, and they would let me, they even to when I found out, the day that I found out that they didn't renew my contract, I was going to Evangel.
Yeah.
And, Chuck Huppela, maybe we hugged, maybe there were some tears, but he fired me up and got me back going again a little bit. But just the idea, they would let you do whatever you wanted. I would crawl all over that field, getting different shots and talking to the players, and the players after about, the third week of being out there every Wednesday, they realized, hey, he's got to come out every week, whether we win or lose. Yeah. And they were fun. We'd joke around with them and all that kind of stuff. So it was good memories from there.
And good people all the way through.
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned Chuck Huppela, now the AD and football coach, and Bert Capel. I mean, just quality people, fun to work with. It makes it fun to go over there because you are appreciated there too. So it looks like we lost you there for a second again. We're going to have had some technical difficulties again. I think we're back now, but technology in 2026, go figure. But we're talking about the fun times, the glory days, covering Missouri State, Drury, Evangel. I did see with Lindell, you listed your highlights, and they're the same for all of us. Price Cutter Charity Championship was fun to cover. The Burnett era, people still don't understand that they could put 9,000 people into Hammond's Student Center. You see the crowds now of 2,000 in Great Southern Bank Arena, and people don't understand it didn't always be that way.
Exactly. And you remember the Hair Bears? I mean, the students would just they would be right behind the baskets, and they shove them in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and one, it will always be special to me because I was working there at the time, but you mentioned Drury's national championship run. Kind of talk about that. And, again, you were the guy that was kind of the champion for the little guys, and Evangel, Drury, SBU, high schools out of the area. That Drury run was something special, wasn't it?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, we started that, they went to Louisville, and we went out there and we did, I think, it was funny how it evolves. We did like a 15-minute preview show before their first game. Then they won the game. Then the next day, if I remember it, we did like a half-hour show before the game. And then they won. And then we were like, okay, well, what's going on? And then we realized that it was like the 100th year of basketball or something.
Yeah, and they were basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were bringing all of the national championship games to Atlanta, where the Final Four was. And so we got to go to Atlanta and did a big show before the game there. And it was funny because Wichita State was in the Final Four down there. And so we got press passes to go to the Final Four. We got press passes to go to the workout day. So we did a show in the basketball, the workout day that they have before the semifinals.
Yeah.
And we just did it. We taped the whole thing right in the middle of the basketball thing. It was great. And I remember talking to the Valley guys, and they were like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we're like, "We're here for Drury."
Yeah.
And then they won, and they trailed that whole game. one of the things that I was able to do in the last, let's say, 2 weeks at Channel 10 was copy a bunch of stories over onto a hard drive.
Yeah.
So, and one of the engineers, Josh Fowler out there, God bless him, he knows how to fix everything. He got one of those old DVC tape to tape machines to go down and work. So I was able to grab a bunch of old stories from the 90s and the early 2000s to save. But we went and looked back at some of those Drury games in that run. They trailed that championship game the whole time, the whole way. And at the very end, they went. And I remember I looked over to Justin Doherty, who was sitting next to me on press row, and I said, "I can't believe they just won that game." Yeah. And then we just jumped down and ran and picked up cameras. We had 2 cameras. We were just talking. It was crazy. It was bedlam. And then we did a half-hour show. We did a half-hour show right outside the arena after that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to write a book on it. My goal is by the 15-year anniversary in 2028, because I can still remember each game, the details, and as the SID, I better be able to. So I better write it while I can still remember all this. But wanted to ask you, one of the things besides just the professionalism with you that I always admired is, you and Ned Reynolds were at competing stations basically your entire career. There was never any animosity. You guys were always in the same press conferences and the same events coverage and things like that. And you legitimately got along. Kind of talk about that relationship between you and Ned.
I respected Ned. I met him, and before I even got the job at Color 10, I came down. We did a basketball game up in Columbia. It was a game between Missouri, SMS at that time, and Mizzou. It was televised on KY and on our TV station. We were both NBC stations. So I was the analyst. He was the play-by-play guy. But I came down to Springfield to talk with him about that game and also interview for the Color 10 job. So I knew about him before I even got down here. But I mean, I was born in New Jersey. He was born in New Jersey. We share the same blood. And we both love sports. And it's just sports. It was one of the things that I told, I think I was at one time when I went to the Hall of Fame in 2018, I tried to count up all the people that I had worked with as weekend guys and reporters and stuff. I got to 20 and lost count. But one of the things I would tell everybody is that it's just sports. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be lighthearted. It's supposed to give people a break. It's not a political thing. It's not a sewer meeting. It's not a city council meeting. This is sports. It's supposed to be fun. So have fun with it. And I never felt like I was in competition with Ned, because my focus was to do what I would do every day the best and focus on myself, how I can get better, what I did wrong, how I can correct things, how to make it easier. Heck, after 30 years of covering the Price Cutter Charity Championship, we got that down to a T.
Absolutely, yeah, and of course you had a victory over cancer, prostate cancer back in 2019, 2020 in that range, correct?
Well, it was 2014.
2014, yeah.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with the prostate cancer. Now, those of us who have fought with cancer, we're never survivors. We always say we're thrivers, because I get tested every 6 months to make sure my numbers are still good. You never know when it can come back on you. But I was very fortunate to have it caught early. And then it's something that I said on the radio show this morning. It's when I got the cancer, I was like, okay, why did God allow me to have this cancer? What can I do to make something good out of this? And I took it as, with my platform as where I was at Color 10, that I could be an advocate for prostate cancer. Let people be aware of what it was about. They need to go get tested. Whenever I see guys, I talk to them about that. We have a cancer support group meeting over at Mercy twice a month for men's cancer, all cancer, not just prostate cancer. But, it was something that I think was, it's something that's needed. And, it's something I've been doing now for like 12 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hats off to you for that and making people aware, And I'll just say, kind of in closing, first of all, people are going to wonder what's next. I know you're kind of locked into some legal things where you can't do anything on air. In some ways, there are some ways we think you can, and you will. And I know you want to get involved with some streaming, maybe some Missouri State events, and Brandon Height and his team, Height Media, they do a great job with those. You'd be a perfect fit for that. But, one of the things I was thinking about today, even, Some of us that have known you, we were just downright mad, that, about the way Ed Beach had a post today, and a good friend of yours, and, Ned and I and Art, it's just not right for your last telecast to end with you just not even saying goodbye, and nobody there mentioning. But I got to thinking, that's kind of the way Dan Lucy's rolled for 37 years. Dan Lucy's not been about the fanfare or throw me a parade or let people know. You've just done your job. And I think that's the ultimate compliment. So, whether you wanted anything said or not, we've done all the saying for you, because we respect you and certainly admire what you've done. So congratulations on that. And I know you're not done. You're not dead yet. There's time to do more, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We love Springfield. We love the Ozarks. And I love the sports scene around here. So I'll have my hand in it somehow. Looking forward to that. Right now, I'm enjoying a little bit of relaxation. I had 3 deadlines every day for 37 and a half years. So I can't believe how everything has slowed down. It's pretty fun, actually.
Well, I'm actually just happy you got up and joined us at 8:00 this morning. If you didn't have your cancer survivors meeting, you probably wouldn't have been there. You've been asleep.
Right? I would have been there for you, Scott. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. And Dan, again, congratulations on a great run. It's not over. You'll land somewhere and doing great things. So we appreciate your time for the podcast.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate you.
You betcha. Dan Lucy, one of my favorites, and just, class act all the way through. In some media markets, you've got guys that are at each other's throat and they're trying to get the scoop and I got to beat him on this and that and everything. And I think that's one of the great things in this market is, myself, Lendl, Art, Ned, Dan, there's been a mutual respect forever with all those guys that we all had different jobs, different roles, and we just tried to do them the best for our ability. And Dan was the best at doing that as well. So hats off to Dan. A great run at KOLR 10. There'll be more for him. I think you'll see him maybe on some Missouri State play-by-play on some of the streaming events because Lord knows there's enough of them. They're streaming everything now and need a bunch of announcers. So he'll join that stable of a really good guys doing that as well. He'll fit right in with there. So congratulations to Dan. Wanted to thank our sponsors, Thompson Sales, located 1555 East Independence in South Springfield. Thompson Sales has been in business since 1919. They're your home for the largest selection of Cadillac, Buick, and GMC cars and trucks. They've got new and used, got a great service department, a tremendous body shop. They'll take care of your vehicle from start to finish until you're ready to trade it in and do another one there at Thompson Sales. I've been doing that since the 1980s because from the day I walked in there at Thompson's, they've treated me like family. And they continue to do so from the George and Lynn era to Miles and Tyler and the family and Troy and all those guys now. Alex, they just do a great job of making you feel more than just a customer. So thanks to Thompson Sales. Also, thank you to Colton Steakhouse in Springfield. They're located just down the street from Thompson's at 2020 East Independence. Tough to find a better meal in town, whether it's steaks, burgers, barbecue, salads. They got the fresh peanuts, the wonderful hot rolls, and that honey butter, all at Colton Steakhouse in Springfield. Stop in and tell our friend and the owner, Thomas Orr, hello. And it's got a great staff there. Make sure to tip them generously because they do a great job. And finally, Deadeye Gun in Sparta. Check out their store at 7483 Main Street in Sparta, or you can go to the website, deadeyegunsupply.com. Check out their selection of rifles, pistols, ammunition, hunting accessories. They've got it all at Deadeye Gun. Big thanks to Jonathan and his family for their sponsorship of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. We certainly appreciate that. That's going to do it. Again, thanks to Dan for his time. We enjoyed talking to him, and we enjoyed doing this for you. So we will see you next week on Around the Ozarks Sports Scene.